Hello, good evening, everybody. Before I start my presentation, I would just like to thank Mehmet and Vasuki for all of your support. Everyone, all the folks at Gallatin that made this fellowship possible, and all of my fellow students who helped make this learning experience into what it is. So my name is Alice, and I am a Gallatin student, a senior, and I'm studying international relations. The past summer, I had the pleasure to go to Nairobi, Kenya, and I worked with Nubian Rights Forum. So Nubian Rights Forum is a grassroots organization based in Kibera. Kibera is the ancestral homeland for the Nubian community since they have been brought to Kenya by the British colonial army in the late 19th century. And after independence, successive administrations have appropriated large portions of their land. They were able to do this due to the lack of recognition of Nubians as Kenyan citizens, their lack of identification documentation, and subsequently the lack of title deeds to the land that they reside on. So this is the focus that NRF takes. NRF basically seeks to help community members obtain identification documents so they can participate in society, and they also collaborate with other organizations to bring legal action against governments, against the Kenyan government for discrimination, and they also engage in international coalition building with other groups, which I will touch on a little bit later. NRF engages in various forms of community engagement. The most prominent one is community outreach. There are two different forms of community outreach. One is the classic door-to-door, where paralegals visit their clients to check in on the application process of identification documents. This is also an opportunity for them to potentially discover new clients that need assistance in applying for these documents. Another aspect of the community outreach is a monthly community forum that NRF holds by the paralegals, where community members are invited to discuss pressing issues in their daily lives and to brainstorm solutions together with the paralegals. Apart from identification, issues such as gender and sexual-based violence that affects the daily lives of community members are also discussed during these forums. NRF also hosts a radio program bi-weekly on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and during the program, they discuss current events that relate to that has a potential to impact the identification landscape. Finally, they also have a school program where they target high schoolers in Kibera for civic education. They run like a training program for about a week or two where they teach the kids about the portions of the Constitution and legislation related to the entitlements and rights of citizenship. And at the end of the program, they host a competition to encourage retention and application of this knowledge. So when talking about the identification regime in Kenya, it's impossible to do so without addressing the recent attempts to digitize and centralize identification. So one of the first attempts that was passed in Kenya was the National Integrated Identity Management System, abbreviated as NIMIS, known as Huduma Namba in Swahili. So this was rolled out in 2019 under the previous administration, and under an omnibus bill, in fact. As soon as it was announced, it faced legal challenges by various civic organizations, including NRF, and the Kenyan High Court ordered the government to look into potential for of the program to exclude community members who are already marginalized, and also to address security and privacy concerns that arise from a digital system. So the most after the government never ended up doing this, and after millions of dollars went into this project, and the biometric information of millions of citizens had been collected, the government ultimately abandoned the Huduma Namba project in 2021. And the most recent iteration of the digital public infrastructure in Kenya is termed the Universal Personal Identifier, or the UPI. Under the current regime, it was announced unilaterally by the government at the beginning of this year. There is no legislature approval for the UPI. The government has announced various dates for rollout and failed to meet them continuously, the most recent of which has been August 2nd. So the August 2nd has come and gone, and the UPI is still nowhere to be found. So basically, the UPI currently is in a limbo state, and I'm waiting on future development. One recent update that actually just came out this morning regarding the UPI is that the Gates Foundation has announced that it will be serving an advisory role to the state in implementing the UPI. So if digital, so I think the case of the UPI is something very worthwhile following if any of you are interested in digital public infrastructure or related topics. And so in order to raise public awareness about the potential downsides of these digital public infrastructures that have been pushed widely without public discussion and without consent in Kenya, Nubian Rights Forum has engaged in coalition building on various levels. On the community level, NRF is looking to expand into another city, Kisii, where there is also a sizable Nubian population. So they're looking up to open like another office there, so they can also help community members obtain their identification documentation there. NRF also collaborates with other domestic organizations such as Kenyan Human Rights Commission, Hakina Sharia, Samaride, etc., mostly in a legislative capacity. So these are NRF's partners for example, the original Huduma Nama case. And NRF also reaches out internationally to other mostly digital rights-focused organizations that are based in countries such as Colombia, Mexico, Serbia, South Africa, Uganda, and others. So some of the reflections that came up during my fellowship were first and foremost the role of grassroots organization in civil society and the unique challenges that they face as opposed to larger international organizations. So I think the biggest strength of grassroots organizations is their proximity to the population that they're trying to help. And I think Nubian Rights Forum does a phenomenal job of establishing and maintaining their ties to the local community. So the office is located in the heart of Kibera. It's next to the mosque where people congregate. Many of the paralegals that work at NRF were either born in Kibera or they currently reside in Kibera. And NRF plays a leadership role in mobilizing the community when it comes to collective political actions such as voting or petitioning. And through the different legal actions of NRF, they also demonstrated their utilization of international institutions and opinions to advocate for their own national rights domestically within Kenya. So one example of that would be how NRF used the African Charter on the welfare of the child to assert the right of the Nubian child to have the legal right of a Kenyan citizenship at birth. When considering the digital public infrastructure, it also reflects an interesting phenomenon where the traditional problem of landlessness and statelessness is morphed into something different due to the advancement of digital technology, where in addition to the considerations of exclusion, now there's additional issues such as potential privacy issues and privacy issues and security issues. Finally, the involvement of private institutions in the provision of public goods is also essential when it comes to digital rights, because this is also something that we talked about a lot in our international coalition. So most governments do not have the technological capacity to build a digital public infrastructure from scratch. So a lot of times it is needed to outsource the building of the infrastructure to multinational company. So the Nubian Rights Forum actually did do a lawsuit against the French company IDEMIA, and in terms of their due diligence. And they were able to obtain a negotiation and a commitment from the company to address certain security concerns. So finally, I just want to talk about how I thought it was very interesting. A lot of different aspects of human rights really came together for me during this project. So the Nubian Rights Forum initially was mostly focused on land rights, and then when they were pursuing that path, they discovered that land rights was not possible without identification and without basic citizenship rights. So they decided to move into that direction to focus on helping community members obtain that first step. And as as technology advances, now we also have this digital component to the identification. So I thought this was one of my biggest recognitions through this fellowship that I learned. Thank you so much.